Before we begin, thank you very much to Ryan T for joining the Patreon campaign over at patreon.com/TJOmega. The help and the support is genuinely appreciated. Thank you guys so much for what you do for me. It's what keeps the channel alive and what keeps me going. Even if it's just $1 a month, it helps me out tremendously. When a lot of you are willing to pitch that in, it will help me out forever. So thank you guys for it. It really means a lot to me. All right. So this is going to be a bit of a dicey topic, but it's one that's been on my mind a lot lately. I've gone through it in my head a lot lately. So my mind has lately been on the Pokemon supply here at the store. So it's very fuzzy and grainy behind me because I have to switch back to my Logitech. Apparently, the new camera is so fancy, my laptop can't quite handle it yet, so I need to tech support that. But if you look back there, you'll see a wall of lots of colorful boxes, and that is our Pokemon selection. And we at Bonita Springs Toys and Games pride ourselves on a Pokemon selection you can't really find anywhere else around here. We stock a lot of stuff that you can't really get at any other local store. You certainly can't get it at a Target or a Walmart. And we try to order enough so that even after a set is out of stock elsewhere, and once this set is out of stock at your typical retail stores, you can still come here and find it. Now, we just got done with the Pokemon boom. So for those that don't know, for those who are not in the know, we had a pandemic in 2020. I don't know if you were aware of that, but as a result of that, you had a lot of content creators who were stuck inside, and they needed to find something to do with their free time to create content without being able to actually go out and risk the plague. So they turned to opening up Pokemon cards on live stream. And some even turned it into a nice little side hustle of selling packs, opening them up. So they are, so whatever they spent on a booster box, they made back immediately. And then they made a ton of ad revenue off of the stream they did. Okay, that's not a bad hustle. I'll give you credit where credit's due. However, all of that, and for like 2 years following that, I guess a year and a half, really, we were in what I call a fool's market. And it used to be called, I used to call it a Lucy Ricardo market, but no one watching today knows who Lucy Ricardo is, because as a kid, I watched a ton of really old TV shows. But I'll explain what that means and what I mean by a fool's market. Now, preface this. However you spend your money is no business of mine. I have no right to judge you for it. I have no room to argue anybody's hobbies. You've seen this channel long enough. You know all the stuff I'm into, and enjoy your hobby as long as your means can handle it. That's the only advice I will give. But however you enjoy your hobby, whatever it is, and whatever investments you want to make with your hobby, that's all entirely your business, and I will not fault you for it or say you are wrong. When I talk about a fool's market, I am talking about a very specific person, a very specific type of consumer, and for the most part, I don't think anyone watching this video is part of that. So, what I mean by a fool's market is it is a marketplace that happens when typically a casual audience, common day Americans, find out that something in the geek spectrum is super valuable. Somehow, usually back in the day, it was like a newscast. Today, it's Pokemon influencers on YouTube. Somewhere along the line, they get word that something amongst geeks can become extremely valuable someday. And everyone starts thinking, I'm going to retire on this. I'm going to send my kids to college on this. I am going to live the life of luxury buying this and sitting on it for 50 years. And it never works that way. So the first time I really saw this was in the early 90s. You had news broadcasts that were bringing attention for the first time, really, about the fact that there are comic books out there that can sell for 6-digit figures. You know, a news broadcast says that, you know, the first appearance of Spider-Man, in Amazing Fantasy, 14? But yeah, the first appearance of Spider-Man sells for $500,000. Now, this is back in the 90s this happened, so, you know, today, like, that's a low number for that comic. And then the same thing, $800,000 for Action Comics #1 in the first appearance of Superman. And all of a sudden, you have literally millions of people who see that comic books are valuable and that everyone is scrambling to get comic books all of a sudden. And Marvel, DC, all the big publishers, oh, did they take advantage of that. This happened right around the time of the death of Superman. So the return to life of Superman and the introduction of the 4 Supermen from that whole storyline, that was probably one of the biggest booms that happened in comic books. So literally everything they could figure out to do to throw a gimmick into a comic book, they did. Any excuse to launch a brand new #1, comic book publishers did it. They would do metallic covers, holographic covers, lenticular covers. They would do like puffy, like 3D printed, like there's like dimension to it kind of covers. Basically anything you could do with a cover of a comic book, they did. And in the case of DC, with this Return of Superman book, they polybagged it in a white bag, sealed up. So for collectors who wanted to keep it in mint condition forever, it was already air sealed, opaque bag that's not going to let light in. This is going to keep good forever. Everyone got caught up in this. You're talking about the best-selling comic book of all time. That book sold over 3 million copies. Even my dad got sucked up in this. He bought 2 copies, one for me to actually read and one to hold on to forever, which I think is still somewhere in the house. Now, he paid $15 for that book back in the day because, hey, everyone was scalping it, on top of the fact that everyone thought it'd be super valuable. They spent $15 on this book. Today, that book is worth about $15 because they made 3 million copies of it. When I say it is a fool's market, I am referring to the people who get caught up in the hype, who don't actually know comic books. They don't understand comic books, and they certainly don't understand the collector's marketplace, but they think that they're going to get rich quick off of something that is honestly just kind of rather common and is never really going to benefit. And I've seen that happen so many times over the years. Everyone who gets word of this and gets wind of these things thinks they're going to get rich quick off of collectibles, and it never actually happens. The same people who got suckered in by comic books in the early 90s got right into Beanie Babies after that. Because the ad campaign behind those were made to lead you to believe that they were going to be super valuable and sought after someday. And of course, if you're watching this channel and you are a discerning collector, you know what happened to Beanie Babies. So that is just a trend that has been going for literally 30 years. It's a long freaking time to be going over this exact same thing, but it still happens today. And that is what happened with Pokemon. You had a ton of influencers that actually, took advantage of the pandemic, as for lack of more, decent way of phrasing that. to create a brand new type of content. Not a new type, there were people doing it before, but to raise awareness of it. Now all of a sudden, like Logan Paul and YouTube channels with tens of millions of subscribers, all of a sudden we're doing this. Millions of people find out, oh, you can just open a pack of Pokemon cards and get a card that's worth $800. And everyone starts buying cards. Everyone starts buying cards. Now, in a shop like this, you do have to take advantage of that demand, but that's not to say that we were scalping. That's not to say that we were taking advantage, because here's the truth of the matter. We were getting scalped for what we were supposed to do. So what, for what we were doing. So, I can remember, this is long enough. It's out of production now, so I can go, I think I'm safe to talk about it, but when it came down to the set Shining Fates for Pokemon, that was super hot demanded because the Black Charizard was a big valuable card, and it was a collector set where you could get twice the chances at a good holo. So now you're talking about a huge demand, and this was before Nintendo ramped up production of the cards. So they were still fairly hard to get at the time. So an ETB, an Elite Trainer box, with 10 packs in a specialty box like that, should run a shop like this somewhere around $30, and then we charge, the MSRP $49.99 for it. Because it was at such a premium, because Pokemon was so hot, even our distributors were trying to get in on that action. A box of Shining Fates cost us $65 over MSRP. And when you complained about the price gouging, the response is, well, hey, everyone's upcharging it, so just upcharge it. But what if we want to play fair with the pricing? What if we actually don't want to take advantage of people? Well, too bad. You have to do it to play ball. It's like literally the only thing, so if you ever come into a shop like this and you see something and go, well, down at Walmart, that's $10 less. Down at Walmart, that's $20 less. Keep in mind, even if we get it from distribution, it doesn't mean we got it for wholesale price. It does mean that sometimes we have to go the extra mile and pay the extra dollar in order to get our hands on it. So, that's what we have to do. That's the high demand product. We have to have it. It just means even, upcharge, even we upcharge it like everyone else does. And even we kept it low compared to everyone else around town, it's still a struggle. It wasn't fair to our customers, but it wasn't fair to us in the first place either. So that's, again, a fool's market where no one is being fair to anybody. Same as the scalper that got my dad, for $15 for a comic book that probably should have been $6 at the most, because it is a double-sized issue, but that is how markets like that work. And it's just as soon as one ends, another one picks up. Right now, we're in that recovery phase. Pokemon was in a fool's market that is now expired. So now what you do is you pull back before you pull back before you lose too much of your audience. So that's the kind of thing that we're going through here, and trying to figure out where to approach Pokemon now that the demand is so much lower. And that's the kind of thing you have to watch for. When you're in this kind of business, you have to be aware of those kind of markets, and you have to take advantage of them when you can, and then know when to get out before you lose too much audience and too much reputation. Because sticking with it too long, you can get a scalper reputation. You can get a reputation of taking advantage of people. That's the last thing you want for a store like this. This is the last thing you want for a store like this. So that is what we want to try to avoid. So that's like a little rebuilding process for us. Now, my deepest fear was that the next thing where people are going to jump to for a get-rich-quick scheme was the whole NFT scam market. But thankfully, people seem to have figured that out way faster. So fool's markets usually last about a year and a half. I'm actually surprised Pokemon lasted as long as it did. But NFTs, I think, had a 6 months where a lot of people were convinced, and then it just started tanking left and right, and people figured it out very quickly. So maybe maybe the spread of info with the internet is keeping that from happening a lot more often. But, also it kind of plays up to its own fool's market, because you still have people scalping Pokemon cards, you still have people selling resealed packs and all that. So, maybe the fool's markets are easier to spot now, or maybe there's just one constant ongoing one. And like I said before, it doesn't mean that you're a fool for being into Pokemon cards. It doesn't mean you're a fool for shopping in a place like this for your Pokemon cards. Like I said, we try to be fair even if someone that we have to get our supply from is being unfair to us. It just means that there are people who get foolish ideas of what exactly it is. They get swept up in it, and then when they realize that it's a mistake, they stop, they move on, they find some other get-rich-quick scheme to get attached to. For the most part, though, the collectors stick around, and the people who are genuinely passionate about it are still into it. And it doesn't mean that the cards are worthless. Far from it. There's Pokemon cards that are worth a lot of money, even fresh out of a pack. So it's not a bad thing if you're into it, if you're pulling cards, if you're looking for that big Charizard draw. Not a bad thing at all. But understand, there's a lot of people who will get into something thinking it's going to make them bank, and realizing way too late that that's just not how a collector's marketplace works. Collector's marketplace lives and dies by demand. And if the demand's gone, then you got a problem with your get-rich-quick scheme. But like I said, that's just been on my mind a lot lately. I tried Googling this, and there wasn't a term for this kind of market, because this happens a lot. But, maybe fool's market is a more mean way of doing it, but also, there's also a bit of, there should be some level of shame for doing this. Before you get into anything like that, do your research, look it up, check the history, make sure that this is something that could genuinely become worthwhile to keep around someday, and not just a fly-by-night that's going to be gone in a year. This happens a lot, and admittedly, sometimes it's entirely random which ones are going to stick around and be super valuable at some point. You really can't know these days, and these days things are produced in such high quantity. It is really hard for something to come up that is genuinely going to be worth investing in at some point. But to each their own. I will leave you with the same advice that I always give. Don't worry about the collector value. Enjoy it the way you want to enjoy it. If that is to keep it sealed and looking nice and knowing that it's still valuable, that's perfectly fine. But don't expect to bank on it someday. Don't expect it to go up. I've had to explain more than once at this shop that toy prices can also go down. And they don't, because the demand can go down. Even if they don't release any more of a particular product, there's a lot of factors that will make the demand go down, and you have to get into this kind of thing knowing that and expecting it, really. So, enjoy it the way you want to, but don't count on it for your retirement fund. That's all I'm saying. So, that's the topic on my mind at the moment. Thank you for listening to my ramblings, even if this is mostly just me getting something off my chest. I do appreciate anyone who stuck around this long to listen to it. And, so that's what goes on behind the scenes here. When you got a hot product that's suddenly not hot anymore. And that's just how all of this works. That's how all of this keeps afloat, and you just got to be ahead of it all the time to try and avoid the negatives of it. That's the toy store life. Guys, I am facing the most powerful enemy any YouTuber can face, the algorithm, and I need your help to defeat him. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell, and leave a comment. Every time you do, we attack that algorithm and we drive it back until it can no longer defeat this channel. Thank you very much.